furniture in the house. So I know the house very well and took care of it also after a flood. But the purpose that you're all here today is really this fabulous exhibit by my friend Arina Dähnick from Berlin. And I should make it clear that she has become my friend in the last year. I didn't know her before that time. And she even asked me to write a little foreword for her book. I am very impressed with her work as a photographer, and to me, what her photography does is to see and reinterpret MIES's work in a new way, in a 21st century way, because we all have seen, and there are several pictures of Farnsworth House hanging on the wall here and so on. They are the famous Hedrick Blessing shots, which were taken to describe the architecture. Her pictures, while they describe the architecture in some way too, they, however, describe and depict an emotional relationship with the architecture. And you will see in many of the pictures there's a wonderful shown a reflection of landscape or clouds or urban scenery that is maybe behind the photographer, but they are reflected in the window glass, and you can see both what's behind and looking into the building in several cases. So I was very touched by these pictures that she showed me some time ago, a year ago about, whenever that was. And where, by the way, where are we going to see this? In the barn?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We'll step out across the grass here and go to the Farnsworth building, which should be quite interesting. And Arina, are you going to say a few words?
Actually, it is not planned yet, but later on, when we are in the exhibition, walking the exhibition, I would like to and open to if you have questions, how some projects, there's always a story behind the several projects, and I would love to let you know about it and answer questions, yes. So, but thank you, Dirk, because what you said, the emotion part of the building's architecture, so I feel so much understood, and that is wonderful that it is like this. So that is really to what I'm looking for photographing. Just let me say these two sentences, and so when I visit a building, I see a building, I look first not what I'm viewing, I first look for what it makes with me. And if nothing happens inside of me viewing that building, I won't photograph it. So, and MIES did a lot to me, and it means so much for me that you are there talking this way. Thank you.
Well, you're working One last word before I think Michelangelo will speak, right? Here?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Ever since seeing her pictures and this, what I call a new interpretation or a new viewing, a new sensitivity to the MIES architecture, I wonder what MIES himself would have said if and when he would have seen these pictures. Was it exactly in his mind that would function that way, or is it also for him a new discovery? For you to mind that question. Thank you.
And next is Dr. Michelangelo Sabatino, who wrote the introduction to the book, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Bring the lights down. Is that okay? You can see the slides.
Welcome. So this was also, I had just become the dean, and I I got this email saying that someone from Berlin, Arina Dähnick, wanted to meet and discuss this project. And so basically it's been a 2-year sort of interaction. I'm very proud that S.R.Crown Hall is featured prominently on the cover. And I think what I'm also proud of course, there's going to be a major show to coincide with the biennial starting September the 18th in Crown Hall. So I'm especially proud of the fact that this has been a project that has been cultivated, nurtured in collaboration with Arina, and that Arina has met with a lot of support here in Chicago. So I just want to step back into my new and my first role as an art and architectural historian and just take you, this is to show that we actually did work together in a rare moment that I allowed clutter to fill my desk. But my essay in the introduction of the book is a reflection on the role that reflections, the redundancy, and shadows played in the work of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. In 1922, reflecting on his experience with the 2 glass skyscrapers, Mies wrote, "I discovered by working with actual glass models that the important thing is the play of reflections and not the effect of light and shadow as in ordinary buildings." So this awareness that glass, smooth surfaces, and in this specific, now this has been cut off because you're not seeing, there seems to be some issue with the image that are being projected. In fact, it's slightly cut off, my apologies, but you'll trust me when I read the full. The term is specular reflections. Now you're going to have to look that up in Wikipedia. Specular reflections are specific phenomena that are made possible thanks to smooth glass surfaces. But also, specular reflections can occur when, say, you have a mountain that, when there's a lake underneath, you sometimes see that these, the image is projected right on the smooth lake front. So there's actually a technical term to describe what we're going to see in the work of Arina. Okay, thanks for trying. And of course, this is the image that started off all her journey, the 2013 image that she took with her Leica outside of the Neue Nationalgalerie with you can see the St. Matthew still in the back, stiff as always, but rendered more dramatic with this beautiful cloud. And so from this, her journey began, and she in photography in general, right? Architectural photography. But to be clear, Arina was not, I'm sorry to say, the first that was interested in specular reflections. This is a beautiful photo published in a 1951 article of Life by Frank, he's a Wisconsin-based photographer, Frank Scherschel. And I just want to read you this quote that basically kind of reinforces what we've talked about the reflections, but by contemporary critics, very important historian Manfredo Taffuli and Francesco Del Col, he writes, apropos Mies, "But the perfectly homogeneous, broad-glassed expanse is also a mirror in the literal sense. The almost nothing has become a big glass, although imprinted not with the hermetic surrealist plays of Duchamp, but reflecting images of the urban chaos that surrounds the timeless Miesian prairie." So this is a photo that Scherschel did in 1951, and one of the first sort of color photos published during those years. So why portraits? The catalog is entitled Architectural Portraits, and for those of you who are familiar with that art history genre, you know that a portrait is a construct. It's not a snapshot, right? So it implies, framing strategies implies a series of things that you don't see on Instagram, right? More than any other architect, Mies van der Rohe has attracted the interest of artists. And if you think of that as a sort of important aspect of why his work continues to live on in ways that other modern architects have just not managed to achieve. So this is the famous Thomas Wolff photo. But I also wanted us to reflect, and I write about this in the essay, the difference between the sort of new objectivity, the Neue Sachlichkeit portrait, and the expressionist portrait. Here we see Otto Dick's two of his own self-portraits and a photo. And so photography is a means through which you can capture portraits, but it's also been hotly debated over whether a mechanical eye, i.e. the camera, I'm sorry, is able to capture the sort of expressive dimension. And Arina's work definitely shows that this is the sort of expressionist portraits. And Arina has tried to bring in the sort of the pasty qualities of color in her work that she draws, I think, from the expressions. Okay, so take a deep breath here. So why has the Farnsworth been of such great interest, and by who has continued to demonstrate interest in the Farnsworth House? As Dirk mentioned, the first, of course, that captured it in black and white photography was the architectural photography firm Hendrik Lessing. Sort of, unfortunately, cropped. This is not a good way to show architecture photographs that were painfully compiled this morning, but you see the Hendrik Lessing very carefully kept in the sort of the green, the trees, so that it would not appear as a sterile box. And so through this strategy, this of course was the counter to Hendrik Lessing when Edith Farnsworth became increasingly dissatisfied with the space. She commissioned Gorman, a local photographer who was keen on, this is, I think, a beautiful photo if you actually saw the real thing, with the two foo dogs. And so, you know, she basically sort of, with Mies and Hendrik Lessing, pushed back against a modernist interpretation of the space. So this is immediately after the Hendrik Lessing reportage. So these were done in 1952. As a side note, you know that the Edith Farnsworth archives at the Newberry Library. So all of her, this collection, for example, is there. And finally, oh come on, this is terrible. Just so that you know, this is the Fujimoto, Sugimoto, I'm sorry, shot of the Farnsworth in 1991, a black and white photograph that was sort of, it surrounded the building with a cloud of softness, as if to sort of push back against the precision of the steel construction. So from Hendrik Lessing to Gorman to Sugimoto, we have a kind of a progression of how this building was read by architects and artists. And this is one of my favorites, the Guido Guidi, the color photo that was commissioned by Phyllis Lambert for the Catalog of Mies in America, bringing in color and with this incredible sort of view pushing you into So this is yet another interpretation of Miesian architecture through the gaze of Guidi is not a trained architectural photographer, but an artist. And finally, oh gosh, this is another beautiful.
Grandpa.
This is another beautiful photo by Hans Namuth. So basically, we move from the idea of architectural portrait, photographs of buildings without people, but that interpret their personalities, to portraits of Mies with mostly either models or of his buildings or in. Hans Namuth is a famous photographer who, you recall, he was the one that captured Jackson Pollock's drip painting and film, as well as photography. And this is, I'm almost 100% sure, was Mies next to the TD Center, taken in the early 60s. This is, of course, Arthur Siegel's portrait of Mies hovering over Crown Hall, published in Time magazine in the early 50s. And back to Hedwig Blessing, seen in sort of a somber photo of Mies in the newly completed Crown Hall. And then finally, a more jovial Mies, and if there is a snapshot to be found amidst the barrage of portraits, this is it, him sort of holding up his hands, and this again is Churchill. So basically, we have moved from constructs, portraits of buildings, portraits of Mies, and we come full circle to our friend Arina, who has, through her vivid eye, has brought a dimension of Mies that we have yet to see, and for that we are grateful to her. And thank you, Arina, and thank you for coming. I'm never going to forgive you for this, this terrible.
So just a few sentences. Again, thank you, Michelangelo, for your interesting idea. So the circle around the whole photography of Mies. And I know when you told me that you planned this, and we were talking about the book at that moment, we were focused on the photos, and you told me about the issue of your essay. I was so excited about this, and it is so wonderful that you put me in this context. Thank you for this so much, and the way you did it, and great. And one more word. So I started the project in Berlin photographing a museum. So a museum is an open building. You can go there whenever you want to, when it is open or not. You can see it from the outside. But later I started photographing buildings which were not so easily to be entered, and I had to ask for permissions. So, and I asked for a permission for Crown Hall, and that was the way. And Michelangelo wrote to me, "Yeah, you got it, and I want to get to know you." And that was such a wonderful beginning of an exchange, which lasts now since years, discussing photos.
2 years.
2 years, yes, discussing photos, working on it, and to have that exchange makes something to my photography. Yeah, so this is an interaction which changes also the way I work, and so we are really a team. And there's another man here right today. I'm so happy to welcome Robert Beer and his wife, and so from the Federal Center, and the same thing. So I got the permission photographing there, and we started exchanging about the photos I did, and so that made it deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper understanding. Of course, the same with Dirk. So thank you all for contributing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So you have your little umbrella to take us into the Farnsworth?
Yeah, like in the oldest century for the sun.